back. Happiest of holidays. We have a great show for you today. I'm very excited. We're going to be talking about the best and worst of Black TV and movies. So let's get to it. I have got an amazing panel I'm super excited about. I have got me my Ed Greer.
Hello.
Hello. I have got me my Nwadiwe.
Hey.
I have got me my Joelle Monique.
Hi.
And we have all got you, and we're very excited about that. So this decade, it's been an interesting one for Black TV and Black movies. Started off real slow, real slim thickens. This slim thickens. That's
Slim thickens.
Slim trademark.
That's my new Twitter handle. Slim thickens. It started out real slim pickings, but started to kind of build as the decade was going on. And so now, obviously, we are nearing the end of this decade. We are all hella old. And so we would like to go back and talk about some of our favorites, our favorite Black movies, our favorite Black TV. We might even highlight some, like, Black actors. It's going to be great. I'm very excited. I am going to start with my Ed Greer. Ed Greer. What is your best favorite Black TV show of the decade?
It's close, but I gotta say I kind of like what Atlanta has done.
Ooh, yes.
I like what they've done because they've embraced the sort of, yes, there's a season arc, but we're not concentrating on it all the damn time. You know what I mean? Certain episodes, you don't even really know where they fit in the chronology. They could happen way later or way earlier. They're just these adventures. And, like, they call them television episodes. You know what I'm saying? I love episodic for television because you know what? They're television episodes.
Right.
You can't call, they don't say movies are, oh, that movie was quite movieotic. You know what I mean? It's stupid. So, like, I love television that can embrace the fact that not all of us watch every damn thing in a big giant binge on our phone. You know what I mean? Some of us like to take a little time, maybe watch 2 episodes and then hold off for 2 weeks and watch another 3 or something. You know what I mean? And you can pick it up anywhere because it's got that. But when you look at the threads, it's really cool too. When you see the threads that are going through all the episodes, you're like, look, that calls back to that. But you don't need them.
Yeah, no, I love Atlanta. That's one of my definitely one of my favorite shows that's out right now. I love everything that they're talking about with Earn and it's one of those ones where, and I especially love that a lot of the writers in that writer's room had never been in a writer's room before, and so they're going to come out and be doing such a great just job, and really killing it, getting nominated for stuff. There's an invisible car. What are some of your favorite parts about Atlanta?
The Silk TLC homage kind of was, but kind of wasn't. Yeah. It was like, it just happened so quick where you were like, oh my gosh, this is a real thing and it's beautiful and it's amazing. I'm also a really big fan of the Champagne Poppy episode because if you've ever tried to get into a house party of a famous person, it's it encapsulates the entire experience. It's never fun. It's like just really awful, like clout chasers.
And even if you get in, the party's not fun.
No, it's never fun. It's terrible. The people will drop in and drop out so quick. They're like, yo, I was here. I took like 3 hot photos and now I'm gone. I've never seen one with a standee, but I believe that exists. So I appreciated seeing some of my Hollywood spotlight in the Atlanta sector on Atlanta. That was great.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, that I've been there multiple times where like a artist or celebrity will attach their name to a party and say they'll be there. I remember this happened so often that there was one that was like the VMAs after party and Lil Wayne was supposed to be there, and I was surprised that I actually saw him. And I was like, oh, he's actually here. And it was like it kind of was what it claimed to be. But for the most part, when you go there, they'll pop on stage, they'll say what's up, and then they'll like dip out.
And then they'll leave with their $20,000.
Yeah. And there's like, all right, good
and
job.
their huge entourage. We're going out to the real party now.
Well, also I love the episode's kind of like, anticlimaticness of it all, because also it was one of those things. The thing it did was very interesting. It was the expectations on 2 levels. At this point in Atlanta, we got used to musical artists kind of having cameos in this. So not only were they trying to see Drake, but we as the audience were wondering if Drake was going to be in this episode. So it was like very funny to kind of have it and then have the cutout be not only a kind of reveal to them, but us as the audience as well. So, and that is the kind of levels that Atlanta plays with. They play with the format and meta of like TV writing and our expectations as a viewer. And and I think that is kind of amazing when you look at the beginning of where it started and where it ended. Because if you look at the pilot of FX, you think it's this serious take on, you know, this rapper from the hood trying to make it, and you're expecting this like deep story, and then you have a scene with the man on the bus with a sandwich, and he like tries to force him to eat it, and he disappears. So it like balances
these really nice surreal elements.
Yes.
Yeah.
The barbershop episode.
Oh, yeah.
Which I almost forgot about as being just peak writing for television, maybe. And we didn't get into Teddy Perkins, right?
Oh yeah,
Oh, we haven't even got into Teddy Perkins.
Well, but that's what I'm alluding to when I talk about episodic. In a show that's not episodic, they would have been talking about Teddy Perkins the next 4 episodes.
Yeah.
You see this dude, Teddy Perkins, he had me hemmed up, dog, and then they was gonna shoot me, and then the dude, and the bag on his head, and then, but they don't talk about it because it almost didn't happen.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it was like it's part of the episodic, the mosaic, the mosaic of experiences of people in Atlanta. And yes, the barbershop episode, I liken it to like there's a lot of roasting platforms now. People roast this, roast that. The old school roast jokes are very like tuned. They're like ba 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 da 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 ba. But when black people get to dissing each other, it's got a different rhythm.
Yeah.
That episode has a different rhythm than so-called regular quote unquote TV writing. Yeah. Getting on an adventure with your barber, you got half your hair cut and your barber need to go make a run. I don't know that Seinfeld can relate to that.
Also, like, speaking of Seinfeld, I think that's a great comparison, and I feel like that was a black Seinfeld-esque episode, because if you think about it, there were no real stakes in that episode, but if you're a black person watch it, the stakes are super high. You know, like anyone else watching was like, yeah, okay, just go to another barber, and we
like, no, there is no
other barber.
You don't cheat on your barber, and you're not going to find a new barber, and like it's not going to happen.
They're real relationships. It's like telling a teenage girl, get a new best friend.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, what?
Exactly. So that was the beauty of that episode, and I think Atlanta, where it was for the lack of the term, friend April Wolf hates when this is used for horror, but you know, it's like an elevated, you know, black television, so that hipsters and like, you know, all the AV clubs and the like can really praise it, but it's still like completely relatable to black people as a whole. Like it's not really elevated, it's just shot really well.
Right.
Yeah.
And these are
it's what happens when you give us money. If you give us money, we make good things, and we ain't got to be shooting stuff on our cell phones. And we don't have to like borrow like the horrible cameras that somebody bought for like camcorders for like someone's graduation. Give us money, we can do good things.
You can also hire talent because you have Brian Tyree Henry, Lakeith Steinfeld, and Zazie Beetz. Like just those three alone, I feel like would probably have never been cast on a singular show, and so for them to have like put that together,
absolutely,
like a nice ensemble that you can bounce around. You don't need Zazie in every.
I mean, and also I'm gonna just talk about those characters in itself. Those are characters that I don't think a white room could ever create. These are very like archetypical like black people that we're aware of. You know, you have the weird guy, you have the guy who's too hood, you got the like kind of slacker, which I want to really hit on with Atlanta too, and you have Zazie Beetz, who is the kind of like always on again off again girlfriend who for some reason seems to keep putting up with her baby daddy shit. Like that type of stuff is very like pointed and specific to things we've seen in our life that I don't think, you know, some Harvard writer would be able to come up with. Like and which is why in a lot of television you have the, you know, idea of this black character, and one, they're afraid to make them fall anything short of great, because, you know, if you're a white writer writing, you're afraid of coming off as racist, because and you create these like scenarios in your head that would never happen. Whereas like Donald Glover in a room full of a lot of, you know, people of color and black people have no problem having their main character be this fuck up, because they don't need to. They don't need to like, you know, make him look great, because there's no risk of them coming off as racist, or why are you putting this black person through it? Which is why every time I say, when you have this like perfect black friend archetype in these like predominantly white shows, the biggest solution you can have to make that character interesting is hire black writers, because then you have someone in there who's like, no, they need to do this. No, if this character becomes a cop, here's all the elements that they would be dealing with if they chose to be a cop as a black person.
Absolutely. All right. I'm glad we got that good chunk of Atlanta's discussion out. Joelle.
Yeah. favorite TV shows? Mm-hmm. Queen Sugar, I think.
Oh, yes.
Nice.
I think along the same lines of being culturally relevant, really diving into like microcosms of blackness, specifically blackness in the Deep South, specifically blackness of women owning companies that are predominantly
rural blackness, which is like not something we get to see a lot of.
Hardly ever.
And they call us urban.
Yes. Black farmers exist.
Black people ride horses.
We've seen a lot of narratives this decade trying to connect us to our slave ancestry without trying to be meaningful in it and trying to sort of delve into it. I think Ava's maybe has the most clear lens of any director currently working on how to dive into topics that make us squeamish and uncomfortable and bringing like a very beautiful light to it. And I think Queen Sugar does that just really well.
Absolutely. Have y'all gotten a chance to check out Queen Sugar?
I have not.
You have to. If you would really like it.
I feel like it.
Yeah, it's a really good one. It makes me really.
It's also just a lovely portal that Ava has set up for female directors. Every episode's been directed by a woman, and so
nice.
that's helping women get into the to the Directors Guild of America, which is how we get paid, which is how we get union, and how we get medical, and
Which is how we get paid. Which is how we get paid.
Well, and also that factor, I do think there are shows that are like very white behind the scenes, and it's very benefactor like. It's like, here you go, play with that, black folks.
Yeah,
give you a platform. Where are my grapes? You know what I mean? There's some of that.
You the
going
Monopoly
on.
man. I love it.
Yeah, with this, I got my monocle. So there's some of that going on, but like you said, with this show, it's more like let's get some black folks some WGA cards, some DGA cards, and because one of the things they always say, and I don't want to say who they is, but they always say like, oh, this person doesn't have enough experience. Well, how am I supposed to get the experience? You need ID to get ID. What are we talking about here?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So Ava doing her damnedest to make sure that she's helping people do that. The Insecure is doing a lot of that stuff too.
Yeah.
Yep, which is the one that I was going to bring up. But first, I do want to say for sure that if you have not checked out Queen Sugar, it is on OWN. It is the story about a family and sugar. It's about a family business and about it, and it's really good. Great family dynamics. Watch it; it's beautiful. Yeah, Insecure is going to be mine. I know that that's kind of a later in the decade one, and there's so many that I could name here that it's like, I want to talk about Blackish. I want to talk about like all of these other shows, but Insecure for me was the first time it really felt like, oh, this is a show that is specifically for me. It is about slightly insecure, nerdy. Not like she doesn't read comic books and stuff, but she's very like, she's just a regular girl living in Los Angeles. It's the Los Angeles that I and my friends live in. It's not like like it's not.
Wow.
It's not Vinny. It's not Vinny and Ian Turtle like going down the drive and picking up drama. Like this is the Los Angeles I live in. It's grabbing tacos before you go to a day party. It feels like where we live.
Yeah.
And the relationships feel true. It is, just like anything else HBO-y. It's got a little bit of its DNA in Sex and the City, as far as it is about relationships and about friendships as well. But you really, really care about these characters, and you care about Molly, and you care about Issa. You don't like when they fight. It makes you really, really sad. You want them to succeed in their love, even though they pick nothing but, and we've already used our one F word, FS dudes. They do nothing but pick those men. But yeah, so to me, Insecure is one of my favorites, and I wish it was like 2 hours long.
Yeah. One thing I do want to talk about Insecure too, that was it was interesting when it happened, and I'm glad it just kind of blossomed some. Insecure came out the same time as Atlanta, and there was this drive and need and just I don't know why, but online people kept trying to pit them against each other, where it's like which one is this, which one's this. But one thing I loved is I was like, they're both great in their own different ways, and that's what it shouldn't be, the one black show to rule them all. There should be different flavors of it, and it definitely I like them equally, but there definitely felt like, you had like a lot of like the younger black men gravitating towards Atlanta and young black women gravitating towards Insecure. I think both shows are great for both people, but but those are different demos. I think a lot of people try and smush the black demo together, but but there is so much. You have black jocks, black black nerds. You got black metalheads,
black weebs.
Yeah, black weebs. So like the fact that there could be a show that women can gravitate towards and be like, oh cool, we're not champion for this this like dude who can't seem to get it together, who for some reason doesn't want to commit to this super fine ass baby mama. We can root for this girl who like we know why she's getting with these trash dudes.
Well, she also can't get it together. She's also very flawed. Exactly. She also can't figure out her life.
So but like you were talking about, the flaws come with a black room, or a majority black room, or at least a room with a strong black presence. And both of these, the rooms are majority black. So it's like the flaws come in because it's like I like both shows, but I think it's interesting how with the female character, a lot of times it is like, oh, these dudes are just bad. It's like, no, she cheats on her boyfriend. She she makes certain mistakes. She is drawn to certain aspects.
Oh, she's messy.
Right.
She's messy. She's messy with her personal life. She's messy with her friends. She's messy with her career.
And I've never seen
F's the bag.
So many times. Stop fumbling the bag.
And I've never seen a show acknowledge a woman's hoe phase. I've never seen that acknowledged on screen. And
not
it's
not in a way that's like sex positive and isn't like, oh well, she's going down a downward spiral. That's why this is happening. Instead of it being like, I'm free.
I mean, and it's and like from a as a writer, from a writer's perspective, it's very interesting to use that as a vehicle to get these vignettes to see how and also just when they split it up and you got to see like also Lawrence go through his sleep when
don't Lawrence Hive me.
Lawrence Hive, baby, we did nothing wrong. But like you get to see these snippets of like not only like them learning more about themselves, but black love and black and there was like one thing I really like about one of Lawrence's snippets is like when he's with those two twins and like all these guys, you think of it as like this fantasy and all this stuff, and it really is like, nah, this is how you're being used. This is how you're looked at as like you think this is cool for you, but you are being like used, and it is a very real thing that I think men don't take time to consider. So when you have it presented to you in this way as a viewer, it forces men to kind of maybe think how they're being viewed by their sexual partners when they think they're out here sowing their wild oats. Like, and it's kind of those discussions and conversations, and then even him, with the girl he was using as a rebound, and like that relationship and how he was treating her, and how even though you may be hurt and think that you're just doing your thing, your hurt can hurt someone else. Like it was just all those complex conversations that were just happening just by using the device of like, oh, we're just sleeping around.
Well, and also it showed that like, okay, like you just said, your hoe phase is my heartbreak. Yeah. Because maybe I thought we was gonna be, oh, I'm just a hoe and your hoe phase. Yeah. Oh man, I thought but I met your daddy. No, my daddy was just over there. Yeah.
It was a barbecue. I thought you might enjoy a rib.
What's interesting about all of these shows have in common, and because we're talking about the decade, is the advent of Black Twitter and the way that we've been able to aggregate like audiences to these shows. It's specifically with Twitter's Queen Sugar had Gimme Sugar. I forget what Atlanta's specific hashtag is, but there's something about being able to watch these shows in mass together over the internet.
Lawrence Hive is a real thing, y'all. It is a hashtag, and they are out cheer.
It's a confusing group of people, but I love you anyway. Y'all have some wild opinions.
If he literally just texts me Lawrence Hive when the show is on.
All the time. I'd be like,
send me hashtag Lawrence Hive.
We out here. Man's out here.
Now, you should be able to press one button and say not all men and Lawrence Hive. Just one button.
But no, you're absolutely right, because we will start, and we can't take credit for it, but we made the live watch party lit. I'm sorry.
No, you didn't.
I mean, well, it's the thing, because the conversation that some people might not be ready to have is like a lot of the memification of things. Like, there are a lot of memes that I will give to the dark side of the internet, 4chan and B, which, if you sifted through all the rough stuff, there were like memes that came out of it, which was the like a lot of the what is the word I'm looking for? But just the like top text, bottom text memes, all that came from there. But then when I feel like Black Twitter kind of like popularized and perfected the reaction meme and like using it in terms of things, because a lot of it, and you could tell because a lot of it came from a lot of Black media, Black Vine, and then it's kind of spun in itself to going where everyone's using it, and it's kind of like a reaction where you're reacting to the show using the show, and it's been beautiful seeing shows kind of lean into that, because Insecure was shooting out those gifs, and they knew, they're like, oh, if we keep this conversation going, it'll make people want to see it,
and it'll make more people. We're great advertising
because they want to jump in the conversation.
Yeah, not do anything weird like pulling Baby Yoda gifts for some reason because you're trying to find some way to monetize it because you're a large corporation that just needs money, even though you don't need money. But still hire me, Disney.
Are you talking about the mouse gang?
And also hire him, Issa, because I see you trying.
Oh yeah. No, look.
Throw your profile up.
Yeah.
Go ahead and do one.
You gonna do a thirst trap with a script?
Yeah. I'm gonna do thirst traps while doing a monologue.
All right. If it.
Oh yeah, so my pick is going to come from a little earlier in the decade, about 2013, which was Key and Peele, because that was a short spurt of a moment, but also led to some other things we're going to be talking about, which let these folks, and of course I got to do the full disclosure of like A, I was in Key and Peele, B, I have lots of friends, and I think all of us have friends who've worked on some of these shows because Black Hollywood's
LA
kind of
is this big.
But,
Black Hollywood is even smaller.
But Key and Peele was great because I remember wondering how Comedy Central was going to fill that Chappelle show void. And you saw them try it. They tried Mind Mencia. And they tried, they were really trying to find that void of like, sketch comedy targeting people of color that was kind of poignant and that kind of allowed them to grow, and they found it with Keegan-Michael Key and Jordan Peele, who came together, had a dope writer's room, and they were just they created like lots of memes that are still used today, like talking about Black Twitter, like the sweat meme and stuff like that,
the
people
president,
dropping noise.
the president dapping up people different ways.
All that.
Bip bop, hello.
And it just kind of it went strong. It allowed Keegan and Jordan and a lot of these shows and we've seen it all in Atlanta, Insecure, Queen Sugar has been kind of vehicles for the people who were championing it. I feel like Atlanta is the reason that Donald Glover's Lando. Insecure is the reason we got Little and all of the many things that Issa has been
also Blackish is why we got Little. That little girl produced that as the youngest producer ever. Okay, sorry, that's just really important to me.
It's so great. And then you have Queen Sugar, where Ava is not only getting to like sharpen her skills, but also getting Black women in as directors,
shooting
which
people
is
up the ladder.
Very big. And because that's really how simple it is. Really, it is just someone being like, yeah, you can direct this. That's why in the later seasons of shows, you got a lot of the actors on the shows directing episodes, because it's literally that simple. Because it's just when you with network and a lot of like these bigger production stuff, the direction is kind of on wheels, and you're really right there with the writer, kind of collaborating.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. This deification, I think it's interesting. It's interesting how much we like deify these processes we don't understand. I was reading a Spike Lee book about like one of the main things that holds anybody back, but especially Black people in film, is the mystification of the process, because most of us aren't the one holding the boom mic to learn that that's what the frame actually is. That's 24 frames per second versus 56 frames per second is that they got to set up these lights this way, a lot of us were excluded from that process, and so like now that more of us are understanding it, and like you said, on wheels, come on man, by the time we're on the third season,
Yeah.
Get up in that chair and tell me.
You can do it.
Yeah, do it, baby
Well,
girl.
it's so interesting.
You can do it, baby. Get up on there and direct.
No, I'm just saying not to mitigate that or minimize it because we've seen in Mandalorian the directing on each episode shows the personality of the person, but there's all this.
But you're very right. I will say, and I won't say the show because then people will immediately know which friend this is. But my friend came into a very popular, show very late into the season, and he was like, everything was like, the room was so much easier because everyone knew what so and so would do because they'd be like, oh, this character reacts to this way because you had so many seasons where you've built the characters. Like, I think that's why it's so funny when you see people be like, oh, people want to write specs for things that have been going a long time because it's easier. You know how I can write a new girl spec because after all these seasons I know how everyone
I can write a friend spec.
I've seen more office specs than I've seen people.
But it's because we know how those characters are going to interact with the world because they've established all these seasons. So that's why it kind of gets on wheel. It's not necessarily minimizing it. It's just how good writing will do it. You flesh out these characters. They become actual living, breathing humans that you can just toss at them.
Absolutely.
But yeah, to go back to Key and Peele, I think it kind of like solidified, Keegan-Michael Key as this like hilarious, funny guy with Jordan. Jordan went the way of directing horror, and Keegan has now, we see him all the time. I just watched him in My Name is Dolomite.
Keegan keeps a job.
Oh, he keeps a job. He will be just fine.
And he nails it. He was doing like, what was that, the Skyrim refrigerator bit for E3? Like, they just know he's like they know like, he's that funny guy.
He's clutch.
He will always.
He's super clutch.
He's going to kill.
And also, to your point that you made up front about that show, a thing that's really interesting is the same thing about Atlanta. Production value counts.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All those sketches. I had never seen a sketch show that was filmed that well. Even Chappelle's show was done on a little bit lower, not necessarily lower budget, but certainly like, okay, I got to whip out these gels, man. I need a blue gel.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? I need where my Apple boxes.
Yeah,
there was a lot of real filmmaking that the director that started out with them, we got to give him credit. People in the chat, look up the director of the first few, and he was like their third leg.
Right.
He was like their Jerobi, if you will.
Who is it? Was that Peter Atencio, or did he come late?
I think
Key and Peele director.
Yeah. Ryan's on it. Yeah,
Yep.
So just bringing that filmic look, because like Hiro Murai was the third leg on Atlanta to help them get that look. If you look up his music videos, they're movies. They're for real.
I mean, and they were working together because he did the short film and all that stuff with Hiro.
And Black Lady Sketch Show is another show that looks amazing.
Oh, yeah.
It looks really, really well. Particularly one I like to show people, just because it's funny, the 227 sketch.
Yes.
They nailed the way that's shot, and then there's some twists at the end. That's just honorable mention. Black Lady Sketch Show.
Oh,
Check that
of
one
course.
out.
Definitely got to shout out Black Lady Sketch Show. Not only that, but if we're talking about like stuff like Queen Sugar, all black women room, right? I want to make the language more inclusive because I know there is a friend of mine who is non-binary, and they're in the room too. But for you, you get it.
It's women and folks who are non-binary.
Yeah. Women and folks who are non-binary. There it is. That's just add the other word.
No, that's great. Thank you so much. That's fantastic. Now we're gonna move on to movies.
Yes.
All right, let's switch it up. Joelle.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Favorite black movie? It's hard. There's so many good ones.
It's so hard.
Now just pick the best one. It's on you right now.
And you will be held, and this will be your opinion forever, and you can never change it or you're a hypocrite.
Someone else will say what the best black movie of the decade was. So I'm going to say what my favorite black movie of the decade, which was A Wrinkle in Time.
Ooh,
nice. As far as just being seen, as far as like, ooh, little black girl, dude, I'll cry if I talk about it too much. Just
give me your tears.
Like, this is what we live for.
We paid for your tears.
There's an element of old stories that are fantasy based that black kids haven't been able to crack until this decade, when we started to be stars in our own stories like that. So for Ava to go back and take a classic, which our mothers have read, probably our grandmothers have read, insert a black child Storm, who's becoming an entire star in her own right.
Right.
And then to surround it with such beauty and thoughtfulness, it misses so many people. There were a lot of people who walked out of the theater who were like, I don't get this movie, or it doesn't make sense. But every black girl I talked to came out of that movie like, wow, okay, these were things I wanted to hear as a kid. These are things I want my child to know about themselves going forward. And I think as we look at black cinema and what kind of messages we want to receive, what kind of messages we want to send out, I think that a lot of us missed a lot of positive imagery as kids. I think we got tons of comedy. We know how to laugh at our pain. We know how to turn weird situations into like really good gold. We know how to do drama, but like fantasy, escaping our reality, isn't something that we're often given opportunities to do. And again, like we say, access to money tends to cheapen them and make them not, maybe they get stuck in their time.
Yeah.
This is the first black woman to direct $1 billion project. It killed. It had Mindy Kaling, who's like Idol status, and Oprah. There's so much to love about this movie, and I kind of can't wait to share it with like my goddaughter. Experience it and see it and explore it.
I would love if you could take a picture for me of her seeing Giant Oprah for the first time.
Yeah.
I will do that.
Please send that.
Be like, get ready, baby. Here we go.
Directly to my heart. Yeah. I know that wasn't one of, and a lot of critics. It got some, but it was also like, it's for kids. A lot of that movie is like, if there's some stuff in it that you didn't necessarily dig, you have to remember it's a movie that's for kids. And so a lot of it was for them, not so much for us at our grown age.
Yeah.
And so it's okay if we are so used to everything being for us in this generation, not like us, but everything, like everybody here, like of our generation, we're very used to like everyone targeting everything towards us, that when something isn't for us, sometimes it gets very like, oh, well, it's just not great.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, to you, but that's why art is subjective. And there's plenty of stuff that people love where I'm like, it didn't work for me, but I'm glad it's there for you so that you can have it.
Absolutely. You know? I didn't need it to be the best film ever. I think it was exactly what it aimed to be, and I think that there's a lot of value in what it was trying to do.
Well, and also when you're looking at something that's aiming at somebody, like and again, I'm not trying to start the storm, okay? This is not Hot Take Sally time, okay?
Isn't it?
But there are people who saw Captain Marvel who said that, well, I don't understand some of her motivations for this and the other, and women looked at that little montage and said, I get that.
Yeah.
I get that 2-second montage of her being put down and you got to get up and you suck, you can't fly planes and the cockpit and this and the other. Women needed a 10-second montage and a couple of interstitial scenes to get a giant narrative of her being downtrodden. And dudes are like, I need to see G.I. Jane and the rain. I need to see all this terrible stuff.
Yeah.
Women were able to intuit all that, just like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it turns out we don't need to have horrible sexual assault for us to in the movie.
Or like to get revenge.
Yeah.
But they do that to women a lot, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But all I'm saying is, to your point, that's what this was doing. It was like it spoke to you guys, you know what I'm saying? It spoke to people who haven't been spoke to in a while, and then people go, "Well, that wasn't for me." No, it wasn't. Get used to it. Jeez, like everything doesn't have to be for you.
I mean, I think it's funny because I do think we're in the era of where people are trying to, posture themselves as having high film intelligence. Yet many times we're watching people watch films. I mean, we're all on a show talking, on an elevated level about film, but people are, posturing that they have high film intelligence, but people will take a film not being made for them and see that as a negative, and that shows a lack of intelligence because, the understanding of art is knowing who it is for. There may be there might be an art out there that you can look at and realize that it's not for you, but are they doing a good job at conveying that message? Then it's a good piece of art. But everyone who has a rebel insignia on their profile, release the Snyder Cut. Everyone thinks has such this elevated view of film, but can't even tell me who Pedro Almodovar is. Who can't even tell me a director who is not from this country, who has not seen a film in a language outside of their own besides the Passion of the Christ. You want to come talk to me on this level about film? I'm sorry, but no.
Well, which is fine. Like everyone's allowed to like film or dislike film, but it's like you can't. it's just like with anything else, like there has to be like a baseline of some kind of understanding.
Exactly.
If you consider yourself to be an expert and not just someone who really likes films.
I mean,
and wants
for
to talk
example,
about
there's
them.
nothing wrong with eating grilled cheese sandwiches all the time, but you're not going to tell me a Michelin star restaurant sucks when that's all you eat. And it's as simple as that. Where it's like
They didn't use Chris singles.
Yeah, I mean, because the thing is
Now
like
I
I have
want a
no
grilled cheese sandwich.
I have no problems with people disliking, and I think it brings great discussion with art, but I think there is a level where people aren't trying to have discussions, they're trying to invalidate, and that's where the problem for
I
me
feel like the final scene of Dolomite Is My Name is this entire conversation perfectly encapsulated in a film. The idea of we don't necessarily need it to be top quality as long as you're hitting us in a place that we understand and you're filling a void that we've longed to see.
Hey, look at you, Miss Segway.
Which is great.
No, well, let's go right into because I know that was what Ed was wanting to talk about.
You're on a segue like Paul Blart, boy. we headed down because that's exactly right. Dolomite Is My Name. I know it's a recent entry, and I'll even do you one better. It's one of these few times when I think Dolomite Is My Name is blacker than a lot of movies that are directed by black people, and I'll tell you why. Because Eddie Murphy handpicked Craig Brewer. He knew Craig Brewer could do a story of a struggling person, and he said, this is the best person that I think for the job. And the screenwriters, Larry, forgot his name, but and Karaszewski, who wrote Ed Wood, they understood more than a lot of people the story of what Rudy Ray Moore was and what he meant to people and what he meant to us. There's a lot of modern black writers who are hot right now that I don't think would have had as good a take on Dolomite as those guys.
I'm having an epiphany. Okay, what you were saying earlier about writers' rooms with predominantly black staff being able to tell and dive into stories in a way that white writers are unable, I feel like watching that movie, you miss the black struggle, but it's not because it's not there. It's because it's not being shoved down your throat. There are elements of his blackness that, make it more challenging for him to complete the project, but we don't have a lot of time to dwell on that because Rudy Ray's mindset is just like, just get it done. Yes. And I wonder if a black writer would have been able to stop themselves from, especially because they've probably been through similar situations. You want to hit it and be like, this is so unfair.
I mean, especially as a black creative, there are so many things that it's so funny that we're talking about. I literally finished watching it last night.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
All my new, like I said, I got a new sound system, y'all. It's slapping, it's popping. That's not even a movie with like loud sounds, but funk music was pumping out the house.
That's progress because we used to be booming in the streets with the booming system. Now you got the booming home surround system.
I know.
That's right. You're on your daddy swag.
But there is something, I know Danielle called me out for being a real dad about being excited about this sound system.
I was getting texts while I'm on the plane about his new surround system.
Oh, wow.
But there is something about it was truly inspiring to me as a creative and as someone in this industry to that moment at the very end of him being like, I don't want to see the movie. I want to be out here with the people who want to see me. That is a thing. I can feel that. It's like when you do a stand-up show and all the guys are like, hey, let's go smoke weed, and you're like, no, I want to talk to these people who actually came and saw me, and that energy and truly remembering y'all are the reason that I'm able to do what I love. Look, take that as you will, commenters.
But that is that's something we talk about all the time too. I'm going to actually use this really quickly to do a segue. I am so good at this because we do want to take a moment and thank everybody who watches all the stuff that we do. Y'all, you share our stuff, you turn on notifications, you comment, you hit that bell, and because we made this platform possible for us, we want to pay that forward on SJU by spotlighting organizations doing great work. This one I'm really excited about. A26LA, they are a nonprofit org. They are dedicated to supporting under-resourced students from ages 6 to 18 with their creative and expository writing skills and to help teachers inspire their kids to write. And so what they do is they do after-school tutoring, evening and weekend workshops, in-school tutoring, help for English language learners, assistance for student publications so kids can get their own student newspapers off the ground. It's amazing. I wish they had something like this when I was younger. Check out the links below for more information about that program. Thank you for the segue, Iffy. Keep talking about how much people love you.
Oh, no. I guess I'll just use this to hop into what what my movie is going to pick, and I'm gonna be the guy who has to pick two. Be the tie, which I want to do Moonlight and Tangerine.
Oh, okay, that's a good double feature.
Man, look at you.
Because we talk about a lot about Black stories, and there are situations we're dealing with within the Black community that I don't like getting into with mixed companies. But having these Black queer stories in a space and having them both be celebrated in different ways. I mean, Tangerine was the one that was shot on an iPhone completely, and we were talking about.
Well, but now the iPhones are good. Yeah,
they're like, oh, we'll use an iPhone and we'll make this great film. And I mean, just it was like very same thing with Insecure. Very LA. It was LA. I knew.
Feels like my LA. Just donut shops.
Yeah, the donut shop before it was Trejo's Donuts. Yeah. And like also like seeing. I mean, Ian Edwards has like a small like part of it, but he kills it.
And also just the exploitation that happens when you know who you are and certain aspects of who you are have you doing certain things, and then people who partake of your services, let's say, don't consider themselves what you are.
Yes.
They want to distance themselves from what you are, and they're kind of dehumanizing you in that way. But it's all part of your day's work, which can relate to so many sorts of people.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So many.
Tangerine is a great one, and also that reminds me, if you're not watching Pose, watch Pose.
Yeah.
Get into Pose.
Get into Pose.
And of course, Moonlight, which is like Barry really lifting up and like not only this great queer story, but also like I think it was truly like the first like film like where like we dunked, and even like your white film nerds were like, what's going on here? And I kind of want to give it credit for now, like truly with Moonlight kind of made studios open doors and bring these like smaller Black stories that don't have to be about struggle, but can be struggle that people can relate to, like your Queens and Slims. Like I feel like it kind of shifted the kind of idea that you have your Medeas or you have your slave movies, and kind of like broaden the spectrum of which Black stories could be told.
On a broader scale.
It was close to a Do the Right Thing versus Driving Miss Daisy situation of the 1990 Oscars, when we had Moonlight go up. I mean, if you want to talk about moments of the decade, that moment where they were like, oh, it's La La Land that won. That producer was real adamant about finishing his speech. Yeah. And they were like, actually, it's Moonlight. Step to the side.
I am so glad I was at an Oscar party when that happened, because that was an experience that was better served around other people.
You will never forget it.
It was, I remember during the, like, I forgot the producer of La La Land had a speech because we were angry and like discussing and all this, and then when like we all had to stop when he was like, wait, and we're like, what is going on? Yes, that I will give that the cinema moment of the decade.
Absolutely.
Across the board.
And Barry, just like everything he does is like a beautiful tone poem. If Beale Street Could Talk was also just gorgeous, just great at shooting, just really
and
talented.
he gets all of our best their awards. I'm so sorry. But Regina King won on Beale Street, and then he won for Moonlight.
Oh, was it
Stepdaddy?
Mahershala.
Mahershala Ali also won. So
and then,
shout out to Barry for doing that.
And then Afton later went on to get the Emmy for no, not Afton. It was the one who played the light skin. Jarrell Jerome went on to win for When They See Us.
Another Ava project.
It really is like, it's going to be interesting to see that school of, because you got to see that was like a school of actors. You had who's Big Sexy? I keep forgetting his name. It starts with
Trevante Rhodes.
Trevante Rhodes.
There's a couple Big Sexy, so you got to be real clear. It could have been him. It could have been M'Baku. Could have been Yaya.
I knew somebody's gonna bring up M'Baku.
Oh my gosh! It was a bit crazy. It was so funny. I jokingly sent a friend who's working on a show, who I'll tell you which show it was after this. But I was like, "Hey man, make sure you get like write a buff Black dude in this show you write. You need." And she was like, "Yeah, you're right. I do want to get Trevante Rhodes some work."
One thing I just wanted to say
I know exactly.
We talked earlier about the iPhone and all this jazz. you know, Barry Jenkins' movies are beautiful. They are very well lit. The cinematography is amazing. And Barry Jenkins said something on Twitter, and I just want our audience to understand it. He said, I wish people would talk more about the technical achievements of black filmmakers. Because every time we do some hot stuff that looks like Drive / you know, something else that's lit beautifully, like Conrad Hall meets the Ghost of Steve McQueen. You know what I'm saying? Lit this, right? And they talk about, well, what's up with your black struggle? I don't care that you lit this for 5 days. I don't care that this is like the equivalent of that scene in Goodfellas where they go down through the basement of the Copa. You're a black person who did that, but I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about everything that minimizes you. I want to talk about everything that puts you down.
Especially when you talk about lighting, and that's something that Insecure does very well, really well as well. There's a struggle to light. We all know this. There is a struggle to light darker skinned people because a lot of folks just don't know how to do it right.
Which is so silly because it's just a reverse. Listen, if you're lighting, let me just give you a real quick tip. We reflect light, white skin absorbs it. So that's just switching these two technical aspects. It's very simple. It's not hard.
Well, that's why it was funny because they gave us a clinic in Dolomite when, and it was so funny that it came from Wesley Snipes. He was like, these white folks don't know how to do black skin. You know? And he said what Joelle said, which is like, their light absorbed skins are reflect.
They broke the meta, and he was just like, man, the first reel of Passenger 57, I wasn't even in the movie. You got a light.
All right. So I'm gonna do. This was so incredibly difficult. This was a really hard decision for me to pick what one of my favorites is. Again, it's not the best. I have to go with Sorry to Bother You.
Ooh. I love nothing wrong with that.
So many of these are great. Like Get Out is awesome. Mudbound's amazing. Black Klansman is great. Black Panther, obviously we know, but y'all already seen Black Panther. We don't need to tell you more about it. Sorry to Bother You is just such a. Boots Riley is a very intelligent man who does not care who he make mad.
He does not.
Not even. He certainly does not care. We had him on an SJU once to talk, and it was a great conversation. He has got a lot of. Put that link in the description. Great conversation about I can't even encapsulate it here. Just go watch it because that was fantastic. I love what it has to say about the rights of workers, and I love the use of practical effects, and the way that he, it's almost like, and I feel okay saying this because I know other people have said it, and of course we don't ever want to collapse someone into something, but it really is like the two Spikes came together in his brain, your Spike Lee and your Spike Jones. And he's just incredibly smart. I know the third act's weird.
Which is what makes it so good. Black surrealism. This is what I think if we look
and we
at
won't
all
spoil
of our,
I think everyone knows it, but we're not going to spoil it. But
I think if we look at all of our mentions from TV and film, what makes them really spectacular is that they're unique black voices. The idea that, again, we're moving away from a homogeny, from a single-minded thought to stuff was so wild. My dad was like, "What is? I'm 63." He's like, "I'm very uncomfortable," and I was like, "I live for this. It's so weird, and I'm weird, and I love it."
Black strangeness is, in a lot of ways, the final frontier.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So
that's why, as much as we make fun of, we make fun of the Smith kids for being weird. How fun is it that we just get to have these two little weirdos running around?
And I mean, that's the thing is if you're a super film nerd, weirdness should not be new to you. I was watching Pain and Glory, and there's a fucking PowerPoint presentation in the middle of the movie, and that was my first case of okay, what is going on here? Because I was watching this story, and now we're breaking down his body, we're zooming in on joints, but it's but I loved it. It's just. I love because there's loving film, and then there's people who are if we're gonna step out of I stepped out of blackness to step into the Spanish, and now I'm gonna step into full on whiteness, which is something like The Irishman, which uses a format that no one, we said this on Who Shot You, no new film student should be trying to make a film like The Irishman. They were doing flashbacks inside of flashbacks, which on paper should not work, but when you're Scorsese, you can do it, and I think that's
80 years.
Exactly, and that's and I want to start giving, our black creatives license to do things like that, because I think that's when that's what I hear when people are like, oh, it was weird, is like you're not kind of like giving that license, like you want just kind of like a clear cut story, but it's like, no, let's get to the weird.
Filmmaking has risks.
Yeah.
And I would love to see some of these, like the Spike Jonze, like a black like I don't even like Wes Anderson like that, but like a black Wes Anderson would thrill me to no end.
Yes.
Well, black Wes Anderson doing a black Royal Tenenbaums about this weird ass family. You know what I mean?
My God.
That would be really amazing. I mean, I think I'm gonna do that right now.
Do we have time for honorable mentions?
We can do a quick round of honorable mentions.
Okay, I got them written down. Lemonade, Melina Matsoukas just enters, like, just bust open the scene, and she was like, I'm just going to change the landscape of music videos. That's amazing. Selma didn't use a single word that Dr. Martin Luther King said, but you felt his presence. Like, you just heard his words. Ava, how did you do it? We already mentioned Beale Street, but guys, please go see Beale Street if you haven't. Kiki Lane will blow your mind. She's so talented. Widows. Steve McQueen is everything to me. That man is so, like, the way he controls things, the fact that you have Viola as, like, a badass. I hope I can say ass.
Badass, you can say.
She's just so cool, and it's such a good movie.
Go see Widows, please. If you have ever loved a crime movie, go see Widows.
Also, not to be a joke or mitigate it, but if you've ever watched a freestyle rap cipher and been like, I just wish somebody would do something about this.
Not wrong.
And on that note, Fruitvale Station, which I watched once and will never watch again.
No need.
But it's such an incredible, impactful film about what it is, what police violence feels like when it impacts the community.
And then I will plus one that and jump right into Creed, which was great because Creed got Coogler Black Panther because it showed that he can handle a large franchise and knock it out the park.
Absolutely. Dope is also, if you want talking about weird black kids and with, like, Dope is a great movie. It's one of those almost kind of a classic all-in-one day movies, but not quite. That's another good one. Okay, do you have any honorable mentions?
Oh yeah, no, I was gonna say Dope just because we never quite see the middle class black kid.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? The one that like I had all the good cereals. I had whatever video game system there was, but I didn't have the super fresh Jordans.
Yeah.
That kid.
Yeah.
Who nobody ever does a story about that kid.
Right.
So I love
and he was Nigerian American, so
exactly
growing up in the hood in LA, and I was
with all of those like associations, because like you were talking about the it's funny, the immigrant song, as it were, of the immigrant kids. It's just like doctor, lawyer, spaceman. Anything other than that, you're messing up.
We're gonna do one. We're gonna do some worsts. These are gonna be really quick for me.
You go first.
Worst. We can just do my worst if no one else wants to touch it.
I have one.
I have one. The Cleveland Show.
No black people involved. That's why it's the worst.
That's why it's the worst.
Don't make black content without black people. I hate it.
You should just one like something. So that's and I hate to do it to him. And as I do this all the time, I have to preface this with this man. His art is trash, but he brings so much good into the world with it.
I know what you're talking about.
Stop right here, and we'd all be like,
Acrimony is one of the worst movies I have ever seen.
Oh, I have not seen it.
It's amazing.
It's an experience.
All I want to say is, for anybody who has seen Acrimony, how'd she get back on the boat, though?
That is the question.
Did she get back on the boat?
This is such an infamous scene. I haven't seen the movie, but I've had 18 conversations about how she might have gotten back on the boat. Did she levitate? Was there an anchor that she pulled herself up on?
Go see the movie. I'm sure it's streaming somewhere. It's not like good, but it is funny, and I would watch it with your friends.
Yeah,
but those are my worst. Cleveland Show, and please have black people in your black stuff. But again, this was like Family Guy at the height of like its popularity, and you couldn't make it work. It means it's not good. And then Taraji levitating back on the boat. Anybody else have any words?
No, I don't.
Yeah, No, I think just some of these things that have managed to get on the air. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to be the old black dude being like, man, my day I had to watch Nat King Cole sell soap. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be that guy. Like, candy bars cost a nickel, and there was 2 black faces, OJ, and you know what I mean? I don't want to do that. But I'm just saying, I'm living in an era where Dolomite Is My Name comes out from the same company who gives us a Martin Scorsese movie, and for my mind, almost the same amount of media blitz, almost the same amount of YouTube videos and ads all over the place, and support. And I gotta say, they done messed around and figured out that if they give us money, it might work out.
This is a question for, I think, Joelle, who is like a old film head. Is this a newish thing that Netflix is doing where they're making it have a theater run and then go to Netflix?
That comes from the debates between the Oscars. Netflix wanted to be contenders for Oscars. In order to do that, you have to have a theatrical run. How long does that run have to be? They finally landed on 2 weeks. And we'll continue to see the Oscar debate come up as we look at especially black films, especially black colonized countries within Africa, which now can no longer compete for the best international film because they're English language films.
Yeah, but the fact of the matter is, it is like, for that, like, it isn't an across the board rule, but I do think they need to do another category, because I don't think you're going to have these smaller films from English speaking countries able to compete with these high, like, multi-million-dollar films. So I'm not going to like knock the Oscars because I think it was like a genuine rule. I don't think there was like any nefariousness to it.
No. The rule was initially created as a way to stop American companies from going to other countries to make a movie and then, one best foreign film, but you're an American company. That doesn't quite work. So it had the best intentions, but the Oscars has not figured out how to word it properly, and for them not to make an amendment immediately, to me, is problematic.
Yeah.
That movie, Lionheart, is a movie I'm talking about. You can watch it on Netflix. Nollywood got all of its people together. That is the 3rd largest film industry in the world. It's Hollywood, Bollywood, and Nollywood.
Yep.
They're growing and telling stories that are like nothing you've ever seen before, and for their entire, pretty much the top tier of their community to come together, get this film made behind a woman who stars in it, wrote it, and directed it, and then we don't give it any kind of recognition. It leaves a sour taste in your mouth.
It definitely, for me, who is Nigerian, and I've seen a lot of Nollywood, lots of hits and misses, but I'm very excited. When I saw Lionheart, it doesn't look like a Nollywood movie. Nollywood can be wild. There was a series on Nollywood called Beyonce and Rihanna that is vaguely about Beyonce and Rihanna, and they're beefing with each other.
Why have you not sent me this yet?
Why hasn't America made this version?
And my favorite...
every country got a version of The Office. Every country should get a version of
Beyonce and Rihanna. That's what I'm saying. Pay these people their ducats.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of good. There's a lot of I think Lionheart should be recognized, and I definitely, obviously, for one, want the Oscars to find a way to recognize it. And I do feel like if this was some weird, German company, they might have picked up the heels on this a little quicker.
We'll see what happens. This has been. I'm really happy that I got to do this today. I gave y'all y'all been asking me to talk black stuff. I did it. And I'm very excited about it. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We will see you back here tomorrow. Before I leave, can y'all please tell people where they can find you?
There you go.
Okay, I'm Joelle Monique. You can find me all over the internet at Joelle Monique, mostly Twitter, 16 hours a day. I will be there. Also, Playboy, The Hollywood Reporter, Pace Magazine. It's mostly where I live.
All right.
Nice. At Greer Destroys on Twitter, on Screen Junkies, as you know. And my podcast, Nerd Goat Podcast, please go check that out, because we have a lot of people. You're going to be an alum. If he's an alum, you're on. I'm
excited about it.
Yeah, you're on,
I'm
kid.
waiting for that invitation. Let's do it.
No, but yeah, it's just we talked to people about their favorite fictional character, so it ends up telling us a lot about the person and a lot about the character. So Nerd Goat at nerdgoatpodcast.com.
Perfect. Yeah.
And me, If Nwadiwe on Twitter and Instagram, If D's on Twitch. If you watch Twitch, have too many podcasts on Mondays, Candy Dinner, Tuesdays, Nerdificent, and Fridays, Who Shot Ya with Maximum Fun.
All right. Thank y'all all so much. We will see you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.